And that's a shout out to our guy Tom Graining. We're going to dive right back into the LSU football conversation here at 8 a.m. this morning as we are joined by Glenn West from 24/7 Sports. Glenn, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. We'll just get started Saturday night. What did you think about the offense? I think that there is a kind of a split feeling around maybe the fan base of the fact that you saw the flashes and there was improvement, but at the same time, a lot of the downfalls in that game offensively were self-inflicted wounds and mistakes you would have liked to see clean up prior.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think there were some good things that we saw from the LSU offense on Saturday. I thought there was a lot of steps in the right direction, particularly from a health standpoint of, looking at Garrett Nussmeier and the way that some of these guys were moving. Trey'Dez Green had been a little bit limited in terms of just his movability and things of that nature. And he put together a really strong performance. Caden Durham, I thought, ran pretty well coming off that ankle injury that he had sustained earlier in the season. So I think there was some good from just a pure throwing perspective from Nussmeier. Obviously, the decision making is a different conversation and something that he's going to have to get cleaned up. LSU's going to have to get cleaned up for the offense to really take that next step. But this was a game, in my opinion, the further we get away from it, that LSU really should have won by 3-4 scores. I mean, it should have been 34-10 easy, right? Because you had the fumble at the 1 yard line from Juwan Johnson. You had the interception inside the 5 yard line from Nussmeier on just a really, really poor decision, a really poor throw. Just didn't even see the safety. And that was, according to Brian Kelly, that was his read on that play. So I don't know that that's something that you'll see a ton of going forward, like turning it over in that situation going forward. But certainly the mistakes that were made kind of outweighed, I think, some of the progress that you've made. But they put up 420 yards of offense. They did some things that I wanted to see. 30 carries on the night. They stuck to the run game. Got 166 yards out of it. I thought Nussmeier made some good downfield throws. There was a throw to Nick Anderson that wasn't quite completed for what could have been a touchdown. It looked like Anderson just kind of got tangled up with the defensive back there towards the end of that play. And then the deep ball to Chris Hilton, I thought, was a pretty good throw as well.
On the rushing attack, did you feel like it was maybe forced a little bit, but that was a necessity?
I think it was good that they stuck to it. You have to establish some kind of balance there between the run and the pass. And I thought LSU had some efficient runs. I thought they had timely runs on third down to extend drives. Garrett Nussmeier even rushed for about 30 yards in this game. I actually lost a bet to my coworker, Sonny Ship. We bet that, I bet that Lenora Sellers would have more rushing yards than Garrett Nussmeier in this game, and that did not come to fruition, which was, I think, a really big, a big bet for my guy Sonny to make, and he ended up being on the right end of that stick there, so I owe him lunch. But I think LSU did a nice job of establishing the run. I thought Caden Durham ran well. I thought that, they opened up a couple holes there. They made some guys miss, and that was something that Brian Kelly also talked about yesterday. It was just how it's not just on the blocking, it's not just on getting the right calls or even just sticking to the run. They have to get these running backs in a position where they can break a few tackles to get into the second level. And I thought you saw Caden Durham do that a few times on Saturday as well. So you hate the fumble there at the goal line, but I think that's a learning moment for a guy like Juwan Johnson. I think he's a smart player. I think he's talented and is certainly going to be a part of this offense going forward. But you hope that this can be something they can build on going forward. And honestly, the competition's only going to get stiffer from here. I think Vanderbilt is a team that you can run a little bit on, but when you get to Alabama, to Oklahoma, those are going to be two very difficult run defenses to try to have some success with.
Wait, real quick, who came up with what side of the bet? Because if you'd have told me that was even an option, I would have lost a ton of lunches.
This was approached to me by our guy Sonny Ship. He had a lot of faith that LSU was going to be able to get into the backfield of South Carolina and rattle Lenora Sellers. I think he finished with 22 carries for 19 yards. I mean, it was a lot of sack yards in there, but that was part of the bet as well. So, and then you had the Nuss 21-yard run there in the fourth quarter that
You were
really
the only guy in the
kinda
press box that was upset.
I know. When Nuss broke off that run, it took me about 2 seconds to realize what had just happened, and I just kind of you could have had any kind of GIF of Bryan Cranston yelling the F word kind of meme. I mean, there were just there was a lot of things that came to my head for sure.
And I'll ask you to just touch on a little bit of the offense and to continue on to the offense. You used the word fixable. Brian Kelly's used the word fixable. I think everybody, when they've looked at the game on Saturday, they've used the word fixable. And I want to ask you, in your opinion and where you sit and the way you see where the program is currently, the issues that led to the negativity from Saturday night, whether it's turnovers, whether it's offensive line play, still maybe some issues in the run game. Where, for you, does the word fixable stand? Like, do you believe that those things that need to change are truly fixable?
I think the mistakes that LSU made on Saturday night are fixable. I think that they, obviously you've got to get in a room with Garrett Nussmeier and go through all these different plays and say, hey, like you can't be doing this. Like if we want to have a chance of beating Alabama and Oklahoma later this year, we can't be turning the ball over inside the 10-yard line or not converting inside the 10-yard line with touchdowns like they did, like they weren't able to do against South Carolina to really open that game up. I think for me, the one area of concern that I don't know is fixable, and honestly I think is deserving of a couple of personnel changes, is the offensive line. Like we've seen it now for 6 weeks. Like Brian Kelly really went to bat for Weston Davis yesterday. He's very high and bullish on his talent and the future of the program, but you've got to be able to either get him right over the next couple of weeks and really have some good development from him in these games, or I would be okay, or I would encourage making a change there, or just giving somebody else an opportunity. We saw what Carius Kern could do at that position a couple weeks ago. I think he's also an option at left guard. I think that there are some different things that you can do with this offensive line right now. That I just don't know LSU's ready to make those kinds of changes, those kinds of decisions, and just listening to what Kelly had to say on Monday, I don't think they're there yet either. So I think that's probably the one area there where I think you could, where I would want to see some improvement, and I just don't know if they're going to be capable of doing it. But that ties into the pass game and it ties into the run game, just having more consistent offensive line play. And I thought, honestly, Nuss didn't take a ton of sacks in this game on Saturday night, but he got hit hard, quite a few times. Dylan Stewart was in the backfield quite consistently in that game, and you saw Nuss get up a couple different times and a little bit gimpy on that ankle. It sounds like it's not anything serious, but he's that those kinds of shots you can only take so many of, as we've seen in the past with him. So hopefully the offensive line can play better, but I have some serious reservations after what we've seen here these first 6 weeks of the year.
Yeah, I agree, and I have a hard time. I don't like maybe harping on struggles of a player, this, that, or the other. But after the Southeastern game, you had seen 4 games, and I questioned how you would be able to put Davis back on the field at right tackle. And then that was almost confirmed again, seeing Kern against Ole Miss. And even though he didn't play a clean game against Ole Miss, he wasn't perfect. I liked what I saw, and I felt like it was an improvement seeing Kern out there at right tackle. And so I was also very interested in the fact that BK went to the podium yesterday and said where they were at on the right tackle discussion. And I guess to elaborate on that a little bit more, I'll ask you, what change do you think should be made there? Is it Thompson getting flexed out and maybe moving someone inside, or is it Kern just going in and playing right tackle? Because where I stand, and I think you've alluded to it a little bit, South Carolina was a good football team, obviously a really good edge rusher, but you're about to see Vanderbilt, whose defense is better, Alabama, A&M, who both have better defenses, and like you said, Oklahoma at the end of the season, who has a better defense. You can't allow this to continue to happen, right?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I think you approach every game here with a little bit of a shorter leash. But, again, like, I just don't know that LSU's at that point yet. It certainly doesn't sound like it from what Kelly had to say. For me personally, I would love to see Kern at either right tackle or left guard. I'd love to see, DJ Chester maybe be working a little bit more at left guard. He's obviously been a veteran presence for a while now in this offensive line and just hasn't had the start to his career maybe that he would have hoped, but he's still a guy that I think they have long-term belief in. And, if the guys up front right now in the first five aren't getting it done, this is not really the kind of time to be building for the future. This is, you got to win these games. You've got to be able to pull away and have really strong offensive performances going forward. So I would certainly be wanting to see Kern in the rotation at right tackle, but like I said, I don't think LSU's there at this point, and if that's the case, then I hope Weston Davis is able to really improve as a player and really get this thing going, because Vanderbilt is not a great run stopping defense. They're not a great passing stopping defense, but they do get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I think they have 18 or 19 sacks already this season as a front seven, and so they're able to apply pressure. They're able to get in the backfield and create some negative plays, and so LSU's offensive line is going to have to be ready for that.
Were you surprised by the way in which Brian Kelly answered that question in concerns or in regard to Weston Davis?
Yeah, I was a little bit. I thought he would maybe play it a little bit more, just kind of on both edges of the spectrum. Like, hey, we're believers in Weston Davis's talent, but we also need to have more consistent play there. And he did say that like they have to get better with him in the run game, but they think that he's the answer. They think he's the answer there long term, and we'll see kind of what happens over the next several weeks. I mean, you hate to abandon a player who's only 6 games into his starting career, but you just need more consistent play there. You need more consistent play, honestly, across most of the offensive line. You hate to pick on Weston Davis, but there's a lot of guys that I think need to improve on this group, and I think that's maybe a bigger point that should be discussed, is just how they go about getting that development in season and why maybe it hasn't clicked to this point. And I don't have the answers, and hopefully they are starting to figure it out in the building, but the defenses that they're about to face are going to really put a lot of pressure on that group in particular.
And we were talking about this a little bit before you joined us. We were trying to we were talking about kind of what you were saying, like that could have been easily a 35-10 game, a 42-10 game with the way that LSU was, if you take away the mistakes, which you can't. And that's where I wanted to ask you, is this just who Garrett Nussmeier is? Like this, I don't see a world in which he changes. Like he's just going to make the occasional, like he's going to throw an interception.
Yeah, it's a very fair question, very fair point. Like I thought coming into the year, one of the bigger things that he was going to have to show is that he could avoid making those blunders at such difficult points of the game. Like those were huge mistakes there where South Carolina was technically still in the game, and if you make those plays, you're putting yourself in a much better position to pull away there. So look, I thought the Clemson game was about as conservative and about as well or about as good of the decision making that we've seen from Garrett Nussmeier in a big game of his career. These last couple of SEC games, he's had some good throws, but also some really poor throws and poor decisions. And I think what Kelly said yesterday is important to know. Like they want him to be aggressive. They want him to be more aggressive going forward. And I think that they're willing to live with maybe 1 or 2 of those decisions, not working out for him. But he's going to have to start making some big plays down the field too to kind of combat those and maybe overcome some of the poor throws that he makes throughout the course of the game. So I'm still a believer in Garrett Nussmeier's talent. I think he's got a really good arm when he's locked in and focused and healthy more than anything. But the decision making is you can't make an argument for it. Like there's really bad decisions there, and Hopefully he can start, not making them. But if they do happen to pop up every once in a while, as long as he's making other throws that are really important and really able to move the offense forward and lead to touchdowns, then I think it's something that LSU's just going to have to live with, because I do think he's their best option.
Yeah, and to talk about the positive aspects of the game, because there were plenty. The biggest was the defense once again. I mean, the defense I thought was even put in disadvantaged situations in multiple different occasions, and they continued to make plays. They were getting in the backfield. Like, they ended, I think, the game with 5 sacks, and easily could have been 12 with the way that Sellers was shedding some of those tackles in the backfield. What did you see from the defense on Saturday?
Yeah, they did what they needed to do. Like, the game plan going in was, okay, we got to stop Lenore Sellers from running all over us like he did last year, and they did that. They did a really nice job of doing that. The big 72-yard touchdown run they had in the first quarter was pretty much the only explosive play I think that offense had the entire game. It was good to see the defense bounce back from something like that and not let it have a ripple effect throughout the rest of the game. And I think that just points to how strong mentally this group has been to this point in the season, and the veteran leadership, the kind of minds that they have on that side of the ball. But I was really impressed with how they responded to that. And, I think there were some missed tackles in there. The problems that they had defensively were really with the South Carolina run game, with the running backs, not with Lenore Sellers. And so, they allowed some of those running backs to get going a little bit, and they missed a few tackles. But I thought outside of that, the coverage was great down the field. They didn't allow much of a vertical passing game or much of a passing game at all, really. And they were able to get off the field pretty consistently. So another really solid performance from them, and I think it's a good precursor for what they're about to face here with Diego Pavia and Marcel Reed over the next couple weeks, because those are two very effective dynamic runners, guys that those two offenses really build a lot of their run game around. And so how LSU's defense is able to continue to build off of that performance against Lenore Sellers with those two guys on the way.
Into South Carolina, we talked about last week, coming from Ole Miss into the South Carolina game, there were a lot of questions you wanted answered, things you wanted to see in that football game. And I thought that you saw the progression and you got some of those answers. What do you want to see this week going from South Carolina to Vanderbilt to see LSU be able to fix, improve on, to find a way to beat the Commodores on Saturday?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably for me, like, the thing that you have to see from this offense is just eliminating the mistakes, or trying to eliminate the mistakes, because if you go on the road to a top 20 team and a team like Vanderbilt that has as much confidence as maybe it's ever had as a program, this is going to be a huge game for them, and they're going to be up for it. And you can't give that team any extra motivation, any extra sauce throughout the entirety of the game through your own mistakes. And it's going to be tough enough to go out there and win a clean game, but you can't give up any extra possessions to that offense in particular, because it has been one of the best in the SEC to this point. And so they haven't really faced a defense like LSU's. I don't think. They obviously, Alabama is a solid defense, and they did, and that defense did really well against Vanderbilt last weekend. But I think LSU's defense is right there with Bama's, if not better. And they're going to have to go out there and really kind of set the tone, I think, again in this game. And then if you can just get a clean performance from the LSU offense, I thought that they showed that they could move the ball pretty consistently in the game on Saturday against South Carolina. Can you build on that, though, is going to be the big question. And I think there are opportunities there for Nussmeier in this vertical passing game to get going. It's just a matter of, can they do it? And we still haven't seen them be able to hit on some of those plays. I think you're going to have to hit on some of those plays. I think it's going to be a big game for Trey'Ez. It's going to have to be a big game for Aaron Anderson, for Xavion Thomas, for Marion Brown, those guys. Kyle Parker, I loved what they did with Kyle Parker in this game last weekend. I would love to see him get more opportunities too. But I think it really starts with just making cleaner decisions. not turn the ball over offensively, and then really just sticking to what you've been able to do so well, which is get after the quarterback in the backfield and not allow that player to really get going from a Vanderbilt perspective for LSU's defense. So there's a path to winning this game. There's a path to winning this game comfortably, in my opinion. But they're going to have to play their A game in order to accomplish it.
Well, Glenn, we appreciate your time, all the insight as always, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.